What is up guys, Kane here, and in this video we're going to talk a little about the paid artifacts. Now I've tried to make a video yesterday and talk a little about free to play and paid artifacts, but then I realized the video would be about 30 minutes or so long, maybe even longer, so instead of having one huge video, I would prefer to cut it down into like two videos or something like that. So this one will just be the paid artifacts for now. So how can you acquire the paid artifacts? There are a couple of ways. The first one is buying, which is the faster way and I suppose the more reliable way. Each of the paid artifacts cost about 20 bucks. I think in US dollars and euros that's about 25, and it's kind of random whatever pops up here. Probably there is some rotation, and eventually for the ones that you may want to buy you would have to wait. And quite a few of those artifacts, it is not an insane priority to get them. Sure, they are useful, but you don't feel insane amount of heroes, and majority of them you may not actually use inside of the fight, but rather for some stats. And just getting this artifact is not going to give you an insane boost in power or stats or whatever, because you have to upgrade the artifacts as well. And upgrading those artifacts cost these materials, which are very hard to acquire, even by spending money. So, for example, you get this artifact for 25 bucks, and for specific packs, not these included, you may need about 200 or 250 bucks to just max this to 5-star. Now, I'm not entirely sure on the exact number, could be more, could be less, but I think it's somewhere either around 250 for the cheapest packs, probably up to 500. Now, again, I haven't really upgraded this myself, but I've seen a pack with like 500 advanced materials for 100 bucks. And to show you, give me 1 second. I think I have it on Yip. Yeah, Sky Totem. So if we go on to enchanting this, it says I need how many? Two of these. And this means, I do believe, 54 of the materials, basic materials, right? So 54 times 4, that's going to be about 216, twice to get the stars to 3. So that's about 400 materials. Then this repeats again, so that's 800 materials. And then for the next ones, you're going to have the purple materials, which requires one more orange for that to happen. So that's 81s, which turns to another 320 something. So then that turns to like about 1,400, 1,500. So the cheapest way to get them would be probably 250 bucks up to 300 if you already have them 2 stars. So more or less, this is very expensive and only a few particular ones are good. And they're quite different for both the high whales or whales and small spenders. And the difference between that is that small spenders have to upgrade those artifacts to get benefits from, let's say, events from the PvP that they can do to then get more stuff and then upgrade more stuff, rather than just chasing the late game meta and, in a sense, losing some rewards early and then essentially not having enough to upgrade, and then, a chain reaction starts after that. And what I mean by chain reaction is that eventually, if you're not gonna get particular stuff over and over and over again, essentially your account is not going to get weaker, but it's not going to raise as fast as the other people, which can achieve those goals. Now, it's probably hard to understand, but we're going to go over a few of the artifacts that may be useful for you. So, the first one that I have shown before is the Sky Totem, which is probably almost the number one artifact that most players should get and have, and their aim should be 3 stars. The reason for that is pretty simple. This artifact can increase your event score, your sieging, your PvP, and also keep the hero alive in terms of invincibility whenever that hero drops below a percentage health. And the damage that this artifact provides for your backline is quite high, and considering like my event rankings and the player who was increasing in those event rankings, the difference was quite high per each fight. And I didn't have this artifact for probably 3 months, 4 months. I honestly kind of forgot it since this is my fourth realm, and whenever I was looking into why the sudden increase in like 30 or 40% efficiency on the enemies, like formations or whatever, I have noticed this one little thing, and essentially after I got it, I surpassed him by almost the same amount. So that is probably one of the most wanted artifacts for small spenders. The next one is the Mirror of Reality. However, I do not have this artifact. I will try to find a picture and put it on screen right now. And what the artifact does in general is that he makes a copy of your hero. I do believe you needed to be 1 star to make a copy of your hero, and 2 star, your hero can cast skills, or at least Bazrik can cast skills whenever he enters the Take Wing. And the Take Wing is one of his abilities, which stops him from dying for a few seconds, and then you can cast the ultimate, which does a lot of damage. Now, I think they tried to fix this skill, or they said they fixed it, but I do recall this skill happening in some of my PvPs when I was like 3 million core or 2.5 million core, and this thing just friggin' annihilated my field because my formation is Rakan, and my Rakan archers and blades, they just damage those heroes almost instantly, and both of the Bazriks went into the Take Wing, and I had literally 2 bad blitzes on my field like 6 seconds into the fight. So my backline heroes, my archers, were all gone in like 10 seconds into the match. Because I didn't have a lot of Draconic before that, so they just got removed almost instantly. So that is probably the second best artifact to have for small spenders, especially in the early game, for you to be able to copy the Bazrik and use him as like a additional hero. Now, the Mirror of Reality artifact says that the hero or the clone will have 30% of the stats. So if we look at my Bazrik, he would have like 100,000 attack. However, the clone would still do very similar damage to my Bazrik. At least in the early game, I'm not entirely sure about now. And the reason for that is that the early game, the Bazrik doesn't do most of his damage through the attack number. The early Bazrik does most of his damage through the Flurry, the Night Prowler, the Vampire Bat, and the Bat Blitz. So if the clone can cast, or rather use all of these skills itself, then the clone will more or less do the same damage as the regular Bazrik. Probably I have seen sometimes even more on my previous accounts. So this attack number on Bazrik and the clone doesn't really do much. Now again, I'm not sure how much it does in the late game or mid game or whatever, but the Mirror of Reality artifact is still good as an artifact because you can use them on heroes like Yip. And why would you use them on that is all because of the Tailwind. Now, if we can look at what the Tailwind provides, is that it says it accelerates the flight of friendly arrows and increases their damage by 70%. So the acceleration could be deemed as attack speed, but it doesn't say attack speed. Now, I'm not entirely sure because it's very hard, so I'm not going to comment on this specific thing, but it says it increases damage by 70%, so this is like the base thing. And furthermore, the tailwind slows the flight of the enemy arrows and decreases their damage by 70%. Again, it says like it slows the flight, which means reduces their attack speed, perhaps, because I don't think that the sky would be littered with arrows either way. And then it says command increases the degree of damage modification. So both of these slow and increase damage, however, only this affects the damage mitigation, so I think it's only damage based. So I don't think that the tailwind would stack from the same hero. However, I think the tailwind from Yip and the tailwind from Talk can actually stack. So if you would clone this hero, you would place them on the separate sides of the field, buffing your arrows on both sides of your field, as well as reducing the archer damage from the enemy side from his entire field, more or less. So that is why Mirror of Reality artifact would still be good. However, I'm not sure if any other heroes would be able to use it unless you want to keep, let's say, your faction buffer alive in terms of like Avalon, or if you want to put it on, let's say, Raxius to get more buffs if you have a high star Mirror of Reality artifact. It really depends, but some other things could be a lot better on those few particular heroes rather than that artifact. I don't think that there is any other better artifact for most other people, and the rest just fall onto like the okay or average category in terms of like upgrading, because most other people will take like a few months, half a year, or even longer to upgrade that advanced artifact. We can just look at every paid artifact and look at like 5 stars, right? So at 5 stars, the interval is reduced to 15 seconds from 25 or 22, and then the Sky Totem gives 50% bonus attack speed and movement speed to nearby army. So as you can see, it gives 50% more attack speed, while this one is just giving damage. So basically, you get a damage buff and an attack speed buff on 5 stars. So this is insanely powerful. The next one, we go to, let's say, Iga Shuriken. I have it 2-star because I have Saizo as one of my better rogue DPSs. So the buffs I get here are pretty minimal, and when you reach 5 star, when the hero attacks the enemy with less than 60% health, the mark's debuff effect and the chance of triggering an additional attack will be doubled. So it literally doubles one of the previous stars, rather more than doubles. And most of these buffs are like, how can I put it? They get scaled by the 5-star insanely. The next artifacts we can check simply would be like the one on Flora, like the Nectar of Life. 4-star aura increases the healing received by protected heroes and magic resistance. And then the 5-star is a very long skill, gives an additional effect that makes the wearer and protected heroes invulnerable for 3 seconds, which is an invincibility. If any of the heroes' health drops below 20%. So, as a 2 or 3-star, this artifact is like subpar, giving some damage mitigation, some healing, or whatever. 5-star gives invincibility. The others, like this one, it's a DPS artifact, grants a lot of lifesteal or whatever. Then we have something like Spirit Flute. So basically, this artifact is more or less literally useless up until the 4-star, but then we see the 5-star. When the sound wave reaches 5 stars, the hero and their summon's damage mitigation is increased from 10 to 25%. The hero also receives an aura for 25 seconds, increasing the attack speed of surrounding friendly units by 65%. So this is what I mean. Quite a lot of these artifacts are literally like almost useless or not very useful for most players because most players cannot get them like beyond 2, 3, maybe 4 star. And the core of the, let's say, artifact is the 5 star ability. Only quite a few of them are pretty useful as like 2 or 3 star. So again, it is very hard to know which ones are pretty good. It really depends on your formations, what formation you're building, what formation you're looking to build, and which heroes you're researching, which heroes you invest in quite a lot. So, for example, if you're playing Lich and you're focusing more on magic damage, so essentially the rogues and the mechanists would fall back, and in a sense, their artifacts would fall back, and in turn, you would upgrade those artifacts, which would give magic damage to, let's say, Valerie. What I do here at the moment is because most of the mage heroes for me are just might and stamina buffers, so as you can see here, they're not very that good or very decked out. However, if you check like my mechanists or rogues, they are insanely buffed out, insanely decked out, such as, let's say, the Basric, such as Saizo and whatever. So most of the useless heroes in my own formation are pretty much deemed as like the stat buffers, while the others that I use are pretty much decked down. And this is what I mean. So I'm more or less providing information for people who play somewhat humanoid formations rather than people who play stuff like undead with lich and focusing on the mages. So some of the information that you may be hearing from me in terms of events could be useful for literally anyone. However, in a set of specific things like artifacts or whatever, you have to think about whether or not this will be useful for you, or you could use it yourself. Because if I am using rogues and mechs to a pretty good extent, and let me show you my researches. I have research almost at 500, and now I'm raising the gladiators and paladins. And for example, you have this number on the mages and necromancers, right? So the thing is, the way I speak about rogues and mechs, you have to readjust that information to your mages and necromancers. So if I would, let's say, talk about the artifact for Basric and Saizo, you would have to think about an artifact for Avril, artifact for Valerie, and then artifact for, let's say, Ophidia. And that is what I mean. Like, some information can be different, but there are a few specific heroes in each of the DPS, like Bracket, that perform quite well. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay safe out there.